Today is kind of a cool day. Not actually cool because it's actually quite hot, but it's cool because I'm testing a cool car. It's not like a sports car or anything else, it's a 4x4, a tiny one from Japan. It is the Suzuki Jimny. I'm Jimny Kem, and this is the Suzuki Jimny. Okay, so the design of the car. Let's start off with that. It's an adorable thing because if you look at it, it's such a small little machine, but it's so rugged and tough and chunky. The design cues over here, you actually have little touches that remind you of the previous generation Jimny. So the round headlights, slats over here, the flat bonnet, clamshell. You have these little slats down here that don't really go anywhere. It's just a box on wheels, and it's utilitarian at its core, which I love. Even the key is super utilitarian. Let me just get out of my pocket. See? The key is a key. Nothing cool, nothing fancy, just a key. I love that. All right. In Japan, they have this car as a K car, which, for reference points, if you have like a Perodua Canari, Kalisa, those kind of tiny cars in Japan are called K cars, and they fit into a category. This too fits into that category, but without these fender flares, with a less pronounced bumper to make it dimensionally fit into that category. But for us, like Malaysia, you do get fender flares, you do get a more pronounced bumper, more aggressive stance overall. In this color at least, it looks very military. This, olive drab green, almost if you have camouflage, you would look just completely blended in against all this green around us. 15-inch wheels, filler cap here. Of course, with every Jimny, you get a full-size spare wheel at the back. This one seems to be used quite a bit, so I don't know what happened there. The tailgate opens full length, like this. So the Jimny is utilitarian and practical to an extent, okay? If you have your expectations set at the right point, you know what to expect. The Jimny is practical. So you have this, quite a large opening over here, completely 90-degree, but you have no cargo space whatsoever with the seats up. You have 85 liters apparently of cargo room. I have no idea how they measure it, but 85 liters, there you go. To have any kind of meaningful cargo room or capacity, you gotta get rid of the back seats. And so you have no back seats, but a lot of cargo room. So it is practical if you make the right adjustments. Okay, I want you to be sitting down for this because I'm getting to the price. This Jimny is actually quite a cheap car, as you might notice. Okay, it's a Suzuki and it's a Jimny. They have a history of being affordable, but this is not. Okay, this is retailing in Malaysia for 169,000 ringgit. So you can buy a Proton X50 and Nativa for the price of the Jimny. Yeah. What do you get for that price? Not that much. You get a big interior because it's quite a tall car, not very wide though. You get fabric seats. The dashboard itself is utilitarian and chunky and functional. It's plastic though. You get grab points over here. The dials themselves, they're very functional. They're just monotone analog dials. The steering wheel, it has some buttons on it going on. It's got HVAC controls over here. Singles and climate control. You have temperature, fan speed, basic stuff. Hill descent control. You have traction control. And the only thing I can point to as having like a modern touch would be the touchscreen. So you have the 7-inch unit over here. It is quite basic resolution, not that great. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but besides that, it's just like a radio plus Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. That's it. Also, safety systems don't bother. There is no reverse camera that comes on. There is no parking sensors that I've encountered in this car. Airbags, I think you get only 2. ABS, ESP. And that's it. It is a very thin car as well. It does seem quite tall because, it actually is quite tall, like a Canari or something. But width, it's only 1.6 meters wide. It is so thin, in fact, that they couldn't even fit the window controls for the power windows on the door panel. They fit it on the center stack, like this. Just how narrow is the Suzuki Jimny? Pretty darn narrow because, okay, look at this door panel, okay? It looks like a normal door panel, but This is a normal kind of like face mask. I can't even, it won't even go in by itself. I have to like wedge it in by hand. It's so narrow. And the back seats, when they're up, are usable, kind of. Strictly 2 passengers at the rear. Barely any shoulder room or leg room, but hey, headroom at least isn't bad. And you can recline the backrests. Wow, luxury feature. Ooh, a little scary to pass by a big vehicle in this car. So first of all, like we just saw with the lorry over there, there is a lot of noise because this is a small car and there's not that much insulation material. It's quite obvious too. You can hear the engine, you can hear motorcycles, you can hear lorries when they pass by. Yeah, there's just a lot of noise going on. And because there's but when there's less insulation material between you and all the, the drive line over here, the transmission, the engine, you hear and feel everything. Like the linkages, the gearbox, the bearings, maybe even like the flywheel just spinning. Oh, also one more thing about the Jimny. You can't change the seating position height-wise. You can go backwards and forwards. You can, adjust the rake of the seat back, but you can't go any higher. Your cushion can't go any higher. You're stuck in this position. It does have a leather frame platform and, solid axles, which is good for off-roading, and it's very rigid, very structurally sound. But for slow speed driving, yeah, not the most refined. It does have soft springs though to compensate for that, but you do get the bounciness that you get with like a pickup truck. That same kind of, you can't escape it, that sense of like just busyness going on at the chassis level. This thing is a 1.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, so a lot like a MyV engine, but made by Suzuki instead. And yeah, it's not got a lot of power, but it's simple, it's effective. Could you argue that this is the perfect city car? You could make an argument. I don't know if you'll win. There are no parking sensors. There is no reversing camera. So I gotta do this. Analog car, analog reversing. Oof, and the thing is, visibility is pretty good all around, actually, because it's just a box on wheels. You have windows all around. You have that, that tailgate, which is kind of half taken up by that full-size spare wheel on a tailgate. Parking aside, this is a Jimny, and this is a serious off-roader. It can go off-road properly. So let's get out of this boring urban center and get into some rough stuff. Okay, I am not an off-road expert, but I know that this thing is a rugged little beast. You may not believe something with a small engine and thin wheels can handle hardcore off-road stuff, but you'd be so wrong, dude. This is its element. It's got brake-limited slip differential, engage the transfer box to 4x4 mode, either in high range or low range, and the trail is yours. Ground clearance, 210 millimeters. Approach angle, 37 degrees. Breakover angle, 28 degrees. Departure angle, 49 degrees. Even an idiot like me can navigate challenging terrain in this thing. But shockingly, I had way more fun trying to drive it fast. My standard for like really bargy, boaty, floaty handling in passenger cars is the second generation Proto MyV. This thing beats it by a mile. Woo! Tell you what though, it is exciting because it just keeps you on your toes. You don't know what's gonna do because you have to actually like put in quite a lot of quite a bit of turning angle to get where you want to go, because for off-roading you really want slower steering so you can actually precisely maneuver the wheels. But on a highway, on twisty roads, you don't want to be turning the wheel all the time. You want to have like little inputs. All right, so 100 horsepower exactly from this 1.5 liter engine, 4-cylinder, 113 Newton meters of torque only. So in terms of like, if you compare to like a MyV, which is like about 1 ton, this is actually pretty heavy. 1,400 kilograms, okay, thereabouts. So for a 4x4, that's pretty light, but for like a MyV sized, MyV engined, 1.5 liters, normally aspirated engine, If you have that as a reference point, this is underpowered. So you can't beat a Myvi on the highway. But you can feel like you're a speed demon, because when you're on the highway itself, things are loud. I said things are louder. You hear a lot of things going on. When you're at slower speeds, you hear a lot of things when you're at higher speeds. Even the gear shifter is vibrating. It's not vibrating like violently, but you can feel vibrations coming through the gear stick. I'm going 100 right now, and it is about, it feels slow. If I look at the things around me and how fast things are passing by, it feels slow. But if I don't look at that and I just focus on the sensations around me, it feels like I'm going really, really fast. By the way, if you want to overtake in this car, if you think you have a gap, you probably don't. Look again, okay? Because you have to have quite a big gap. Like, I'm going downhill here, so it's not that bad. Now I'm going 110, 3,500 RPM. Yeah, this is not the kind of car that you want to be cruising on the highway, because it feels so frantic right now. I'm taking a mild bend at 110, the speed limit, and it feels like I'm racing. I gotta grip the steering wheel, I gotta make tiny inputs. I mean, yes, it's not a good handler, but it's so fun, it's so analog, it's so refreshing, the way this car looks and the way it feels. Suzuki, on their brochure, at least in Malaysia, say that the maximum speed of the Jimny is 140 kilometers per hour only. Other markets, at least, you can buy this with a 5-speed manual. And maybe that has a higher top speed, but you know, in Malaysia you can only get the auto 4 speeds, so maybe that's why top speed is only 140. Should we test it? Should we test it? Ah! Screaming. 120. 120. Foot to the floor. 140. 140. 140. 145. 140. 145. Okay, it stops out right there. Oh, cars ahead of me. So it's not the top speed. I was going downhill though. But the gearing isn't the limiting factor. I wasn't at red line. The red line is about 6,000 RPM. I wasn't there. I was about 4,500 RPM at 145. So what's up with that, Suzuki? Oh boy, corner. No. This thing doesn't like the corner at high speeds. It's got all-terrain tires. It does not like to corner at high speeds. Oh boy, I'm scared. I want to swear so much. I want to curse so much, because that's how this car makes you feel. Cursing with a smile. Oh. You know what? Might be that this is actually a pretty good highway cruiser. You know why? On highway cruises, you tend to fall asleep. You tend to get tired. You won't with this. Not with that engine screaming in your ear. All the linkages and the bearings and the flywheel and the road noise and the lorries buffeting you, and like you're shaken up by the lorry. This is just a box on wheels. It's got no aero. This is the perfect highway car because it won't let you go too fast and you won't get tired. Inhale and then exhale. You don't expect it to be fun, but it is. My heart was beating, adrenaline was pumping. It was actually really a thrill to drive this car on a highway because it's so out of its element. 169,000 ringgit, man. I mean, like, how do you justify spending that much money for something that is smaller, dimensionally at least, than a Myvi? Has fewer doors than a Myvi and costs so much more. Like I said, I could buy a Proton X50 and a Pro Duo Ativa and still have a bit more money left instead of buying this. Like, objectively, this car makes no sense, right? But it makes no sense why I'm smiling about it, why I like it so much. It's just so charming and so unusual. And the thing is, you don't really see anything like this on the road either. You do get looks, okay? People look at you, people like kind of like they smile. This car is one of those cars that people, you know, kind of like, oh, that's cute, oh, that's nice. When you roll up in it, it's a cool car. I have no idea how to explain it, other than saying it's a cool car. And how you define cool is totally subjective. But to me, it's a cool car to roll around in and drive. Every journey, better or worse, is memorable because you're sitting in something so unique, and it goes about doing its thing so differently that you can't help but appreciate how much of an occasion it is. And it's also super effective off-road. Like legitimately, this is a good, maybe even a great off-roader. We filmed a 4-way comparison between all the pickup trucks in Malaysia, you know, the popular ones at least, so the Triton, the Hilux, the D-Max, what else is there, the Navara. We took it off-road, and I think if we had this at the same time as a follow car, it would do just as well or even better than those cars off-road. Seriously, it's that good. There's so much going on. It's so hectic. It's so involved, you know, like it's not a good handler. It's not involving in like a handling kind of way, but you have to really you have to pay attention when driving this. If not, it makes you pay attention because it's whining everywhere. The transmission is whining at you. The engine is blaring at you. There's bearing whines going on. There's linkages going on. When you engage 4-wheel drive, it just it's so analog. It's so But I can't justify spending 169,000 ringgit on a car like this that offers you, on paper, so little. Ultimately, the Jimny is about fun. It's a fun car. It's about the sensation and not the on-paper features or on-paper spec. Because on paper, this makes no sense. But when you sit inside it and drive it, the sensation, you know, for a moment, you kind of lose yourself and think that this is what I'm paying for. This is actually might be worth 169k. All this sensation, all this smiles per miles thing. Yeah, I love it. If only I could afford it.